And we are following breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. A big blow for the Mets organization. Starter Noah Syndergaard will undergo Tommy John surgery, meaning his season is done even before it officially began. Our Jim Bowden confirming the news. The 2016 All-Star tore his UCL and will be undergoing surgery in the near future. Meanwhile, the baseball season, which was set to begin this Thursday, still on hold indefinitely. So for more on this breaking news, let's bring in the host of Nothing Personal, David Sampson. David, with this news, Noah Syndergaard needing surgery, immediate impact on the Mets.
Well, their immediate impact is that the fact that there's no games is probably the most helpful thing right now for the Mets. He needs to have the surgery. The question is, was he working out too much during this break? Did he try to ramp up too quickly because maybe he thought baseball was starting? Or is this something where he just was throwing casually and something snapped? The reality is that the Mets did not sign him long term, and that helps. He's in arbitration right now making $9.7 million. But in a shortened season, the more good pitchers you have, the better, and that was an advantage for the Mets they no longer have.
All right, David, without him, let's talk about this starting rotation. Are the Mets just kind of rooting for the season to end already?
Well, I think we're all rooting for the season to try to start already, though the reality is we don't know what's going to happen with the season. But the truth is, for Noah Syndergaard, the big question for the Mets is next year. The rules in baseball are that a player in arbitration cannot be cut more than 20%. Noah Syndergaard is making $9.7 million. The most they can cut him, let's just call it $2 million. Will he be worth $7 million next season when we don't know how much he'll actually pitch? The Mets are going to give him that money, but they just don't know what they're going to get in return for it.
So back to the rotation, what does this now look like without him? Where will the Mets be? How far worse are they without him there?
Well, of course, you need Stroman to step up, and you need DeGrom to get his third Cy Young Award win in a row, and you need to make sure that Porcello and has a chance to actually be what he was. But the fact is, it's so hard when you have a chance to trade a pitcher and rebuild your system. You know, they missed that opportunity by not trading Syndergaard. When you look at the rotation that we're showing, DeGrom is a clear number one, but Stroman, Matz, Porcello, and Wakas are a bunch of 4s and 5s. No matter what anyone tells you, that's all they are. It's hard to win over 162 games with that. In a shortened season, having DeGrom and Syndergaard on top would have been amazingly difficult to beat and could have made them competitive. To me, this just makes the Phillies have a chance to finish in third place instead of fourth, but you still got the Braves and the Nationals in the National League East as the favorites.
David, we mentioned we're not sure exactly how this happened, if he was throwing too much or if it happened just as he was throwing casually. If you're another athlete, it's a very confusing time. They can't work out with their teammates right now. They're at home doing their workouts, whatever they can. How do you look at this and kind of what warning do you take from it, just to be so careful with your body?
I want the players to act like it's the off season, and that's what I've been trying to say should be happening. But it's hard when you don't know when your season's going to start again. But we have to have the players not throwing hard right now. We're not controlling them. We don't have trainers with them. We don't have coaches with them. They're supposed to be doing their off-season throwing, and that's it. Could you tear your ulnar collateral ligament during an off-season throwing program? You could, but I think the more likely thing is that it happened when maybe he was doing more than he should have been doing for a good reason, trying to make sure he was going to be ready. That's one of the issues right now that baseball's facing with this delay.
All right, the host of Nothing Personal, David Sampson, thank you so much for joining us for this breaking news here. You can hear much more of David on his podcast. He is social distancing there from his home. Nothing Personal with David Sampson. He is still going to be updating that podcast daily, so make sure to download and subscribe. All right, we are just getting this in here. A statement from the Mets regarding Noah Syndergaard having to undergo Tommy John surgery. It says the New York Mets today announced that right-handed pitcher Noah Syndergaard will undergo UCL ligament reconstruction surgery, obviously known as Tommy John, on his right elbow. The doctor will perform the surgery Thursday, March 26th. It says after experiencing discomfort in his elbow before spring training was suspended due to the pandemic, Noah and our health performance department have been in constant contact. So a little bit of a explanation there. It says he underwent a physical examination, had an MRI that did reveal that ligament there. All right, so let's bring in Jim Bowden to talk about this. Jim, we saw the statement there from the Mets kind of explaining how this happened, your initial reaction to Noah Syndergaard now out for the season, having to undergo Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, I've been texting back and forth with Brodie Van Wagenen, the general manager of the New York Mets, and he told me that clearly Syndergaard did have the symptoms of the elbow barking during spring training, and that's why they continued to monitor it. And the symptoms didn't go away as Noah continued to try to throw, and that's when they had him looked at. And unfortunately, he did an MRI, and they clearly showed that he needed ulnar collateral ligament. So a huge setback for the New York Mets. And David Alchek is going to do the surgery on Thursday in New York, which is interesting given the pandemic, considering what's going on in New York. As you know, Chris Sale of Boston has not had his scheduled Tommy John surgery yet because of what's going on with the coronavirus. So interesting that they're going to go ahead with this elective surgery, but I think we understand why. Because Noah Syndergaard is not just out for this year. You know, it's a 15-month surgery, so you're talking about missing probably half of 2021 as well. And, of course, he's the number 2 starter behind Jacob deGrom. This is not an injury that you can easily overcome. They certainly worked hard in the offseason to build up some starting pitching depth when they signed both Rick Porcello as a free agent and Michael Wacha. But now, you know, they lost Wheeler to free agency to Philadelphia, and now losing Syndergaard. I think that puts them clearly as the 4th best team in the National League East, unfortunately.
All right. You mentioned they're the 4th team. How can they overcome this? Is there anything the Mets can do to make up for now losing him?
Well, I mean, it's just really hard to lose a pitcher of this magnitude, but I'll take you back in history and tell you how you can still overcome it. Remember the St. Louis Cardinals when they lost Carpenter to a season-ending injury. Adam Wainwright, they lost to a season-ending injury, and this was a team we were still covering in October. So, you know, it is next man up. Is it devastating? Sure. A Mets fan's going to be extremely depressed. There's no doubt. You can feel the vibe with the Mets, but you got to move on, and it's next man up, and it gives an opportunity for some people to step up. I mean, if Steven Matz has more in the tank, he needs to reach his potential this year. Rick Porcello won a Cy Young in the American League. He needs to be a comeback player of the year story. So what it means when you lose an injury like this is the next man up. Someone's got to step up and take the reins and be dominant and give them a chance. And in the meantime, look, I don't think there's any doubt that Brodie Van Wagenen, the Mets GM, you know, he'll be on the phone as the season goes on, trying to acquire another starter, because now they're not very deep. Now you got your 5 starters, but a big distance between number 5 and number 6. So it's devastating, no doubt about it.
Is there any difference in having the full season versus the shortened season to make sure that all of your starters are healthy and they're there?
I mean, look, it's a complicated question because we don't know when we're going to get started. And then we don't know how long are we going to allow the pitchers to prepare for the regular season. You know, if you have a truncated season and we're only going to give the teams 3 weeks to get ready, you're going to start the year with pitchers pitching a lot less innings and on pitch counts, and you're going to see a lot more bullpenning. If, in fact, they were able to give a 5-week spring training, which I don't think is going to happen here, then you would have time to stretch them out. So it's a complicated way to answer it. I don't think there's any question when we start up. We're probably going to have a short spring training, so we're going to probably see pitchers cut back. But also, if you have a truncated season at the back end, you don't have to worry about pitchers going from innings 175 to 220, because in those cases, obviously, with a shortened season, you won't have to go that far.
A complicated answer. It is just a complicated time for everybody, Jim. You know that more than anyone. I want to ask you one more question. David touched briefly on this for Noah Syndergaard. He's on a 1-year contract. Next year is his last year of arbitration 2022. He would be a free agent. So having this surgery, how is that, do you think, going to impact his earnings?
I mean, it definitely impacts your earnings unless you come back and you come back at 100%. You know, if Noah Syndergaard comes back in July or August of next year and finishes next year strong and shows that he's the dominant top of the rotation potential that he's got, then his value could stay the same. I mean, we've seen guys that have overcome Tommy John surgery and still gotten a huge contract. So, 90% of players do come back from this and are fine. And remember, Noah Syndergaard, I mean, he's about as strong and healthy of a human as you're going to find. So, I think the odds are pretty good that he can come back. And I think when he does get to free agency, as long as he can prove that he's the dominant starter we've seen after the surgery, having already had the surgery, I don't think it's going to penalize him that much.
All right, Noah Syndergaard, 27 years old. He will be 28 in August, now having to undergo Tommy John surgery. Jim Bowden, thank you so much for joining us. These numbers just in from Sportsline, taking a look at the impact with the Mets with Noah Syndergaard, without. We do want to note that this is with a full season, so obviously that's going to change because the season was supposed to start this Thursday. That is not happening.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.